Hello and welcome to the NBA DFS Slate Breakdown for Tuesday, November 14th. We're going to be going over it. We got a 10-game slate, but before we do, I have a couple things I got to say. One, as always, come join us at LionStar, only $39.99 per month, and it gets you access to everything we do. Quite simply, it is the best deal in the industry. You get all the prop betting and all the DFS tools for one low price for all the sports we cover. And secondly, I gotta say RIP to my man, Peter Seidler, the owner of the Padres, passed away today. So rest in peace, sir. Wish you and your family the best there. All right, now let's get into the slate. We got an interesting one. There is 10 games, and there's a lot to discuss here injury-wise. Embiid is questionable. Oubre is out, and unfortunately will be for a little while. Trae Young is out. Detroit, Jalen Duren is out, which is the biggest thing there. Miami is still missing Tyler Hero. The Hornets, Gordon Hayward is out, which is the biggest one there. He is questionable. Terry Rozier is out. So pay attention to some news there. That may not change things too much, though. Orlando has Markelle Fultz and Wendell Carter out. The Nets still have Cam Thomas and Ben Simmons out. Spurs are without Keldon Johnson and Trey Jones, with Sochan being questionable. And then Pelicans, obviously, without McCollum for a while. And Trailblazers still without Scoot and without Malcolm Brogdon. Walker Kessler out for the Jazz. And then Steph Curry was just announced out for the Warriors. So Chris Paul is likely going to be end up being chalk. Right now it's not showing that he is, but throughout the day, the algo is going to pick that up, and he's probably going to be very chalky. He's likely my highest owned player at this point. And then Clippers should have Harden out, but he's playing. Grizzlies still without Ja. And the Lakers do have some interesting situations. Both James is questionable, and I think Anthony Davis is probable. James did go through shoot around today, though, so I'd expect him to play. All right, now let's get into it a little bit. Get through those projections here. And I did the same thing as I did yesterday, where I only liked the players on Draftkings, but we're going to go over them. I did go through, FanDuel also, and picked up my all the players I like, and I'll say if one guy I like on FanDuel more than on Draftkings. So, start with point guard. Go with some of the higher owned guys. So Jordan Clarkson, DeJounte Murray, Kyrie Irving are the three highest. Clarkson, I like. Don't mind him whatsoever. It's a very good matchup versus Portland. And he's been playing a little under, what he's actually capable of this year. However, over the last two games, he's picked it up and he's played a little bit more minutes. So it's definitely an interesting spot for him, and I understand why he's going so high owned. Not shying away from him. I do like him. DeJounte Murray, look, no Trae Young. He's likely to play an extra minute or two, and he's going to get more usage. It's not the easiest matchup, but it's not a bad one either. I like the spot for him, and I definitely like him. I'm not worried about the ownership so far on him, especially with Chris Paul being there, because I'll be all in on Chris Paul, and he will likely take some of the Murray ownership away. Kyrie is somebody that I've been on lately the last few games. I don't mind going back to him here versus the Pelicans. It is, I think, the highest game total on the slate, and he's just been producing. Chris Paul is starting to see some ownership here, so 12%. Look, at 6,100, I will have a lot of him. I think there's a very good chance that he ends up in the 40 fantasy point area, and at that point, at 6,100, you kind of need to have him. Skylar Mays. This is one that I think he's probably a little too high own or too expensive on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I believe he is a little bit cheaper, and I like him a little bit more there. But I think he's very interesting. He's producing at like a 1.1 fantasy per minute, 1.16 fantasy per minute pace over his last 5 games. And he did it last year also. This is a guy that when he has the ball in his hands and he's getting some usage and some minutes, he can put some pretty good fantasy scores together, and he's in a very good matchup. So I think he's very interesting going low owned, as well as Dinwiddie. It's a little slower paced game here versus Orlando, but there's no Cam Thomas. The ball's going to be in his hand a lot, and he does have a ceiling when he's hitting his shots. I don't like him as much as some of the other guys, but I do not mind him at all. All right, so FanDuel, see some higher ownership here. Melton, Murray, Skylar Mays. Fine with all of them. Don't love Melton, but the rest of them I will play. SGA is a little expensive for me in this matchup, but I will have a little bit. Again, Chris Paul is where I'm going to be going a ton at point guard, as well as Murray and Mays. And shooting guard. All right, so the 3 highest at shooting guard, we got Sharp, Keontae George, and Melton, and Bogdan after that, and Murray. If we flip over to DraftKings, we got Bogdan, Clarkson, and Murray. So, fine with all them. Really like Skylar Mays. Dinwiddie's fine. Shaedon Sharpe, I think, is very, very interesting. He is playing insane amount of minutes lately. Look, 38, 42, 46, 41, 40, 42 for his last, 6 games. Against the Jazz, playing 40 minutes a night, even though he's only producing at a 0.85 or so fantasy per point per minute clip, I think you need to consider him. His price is pretty high. It's getting up there, but those kind of minutes are just wild, especially this early in the season. So I think you got to kind of consider it. Could they pull back his minutes a little bit? Yes. But with all their injuries, I think they kind of need him to play. That's why Skylar Mays is pretty interesting as well, because Mays will play a solid amount of minutes. He's played 37 and 33 the last couple nights, and it's surely to be up there in that 34 range once again. And he has a really good matchup. So I like both these guys. Mays, I probably like slightly more just due to the price difference. Other low-owned guys, shooting guard, small forward that I like, Brandon Ingram. There's still no CJ McCollum without Brandon Ingram. And in this matchup, I think it's fairly safe to assume that it'll probably be around 1.15, 1.2 fantasy per minute clip, which a projection like that definitely puts him in the process of being in a lot of my lineups. With 35 minutes projected, I think there's a chance that he's even higher in the more of the 36 minutes area. We have seen him get up to 39 in some close games recently, and 36 versus Denver. So there's a path to him playing 36 plus minutes in a game with a very, very high total. So I am definitely intrigued there. Dallas can get into some high-paced, high-scoring games. Klay Thompson, once again, there's no Chris Paul, so there's going to be a lot of Warriors that I like. Klay, while he may not really pick up many more minutes, his usage is probably going to go up a little bit more, and he still is going to have Chris Paul as a point guard to feed him the ball. Now, his usage might not go up quite as high as it used to because Chris Paul is going to be there, but Chris Paul isn't a score-first point guard like Steph Curry is. So I think it's an interesting spot for Thompson. I do like him more on FanDuel than I like him on DraftKings. But hey, if he's able to take, 16 to 20 shot attempts, he has a very good chance of being in mid-30s into the low 40s. So I like that spot for him. And I got to touch on Cole Anthony. Markelle Fultz is out again. We have seen when Fultz is out, he can get some extra run if he's playing well into that 30-minute area. And if he does that again at 5,700, he can absolutely crush his spot. Without Fultz, he averages like 1.15 fantasy points per minute. And at 5,700, if he's able to get to almost starter type minutes, he's in a real interesting spot. Now, he's going to have to run good to get there. So understand going with him, you're taking a chance, but it's an interesting spot that nobody's going there. And you could do worse than going with him. All right, now let's get over to small forward. So we got Bogdan, we got Hunter, we got Porter, all three of which I think are absolutely fine. I'm going to have a lot of Bogdan. Hunter gets a bump up, and he's priced pretty low for the amount of minutes he's going to play. I think they are all interesting. You could even throw Sadiq Bey into this. The only thing is I wouldn't use Bey, Hunter, and Bogdan all in the same lineup. I think that if they hit, it'll only be two of the three. So probably max out on trying to get two of those three in there. But Bey is too cheap for what his ceiling is if he's able to run into some extra minutes. If he gets to 28 to 30 at 4,300, he's super interesting. Just know, don't play all three of those guys in the same lineup. Other guys here at small forward, back on the marketing train, and until this price goes up a little bit more, I'm going to just stay here. The dude is crushing. He's in a great matchup, and for some reason, not that high owned, so I'll be going back there. Shaden, we have talked about, and Brandon Ingram we have as well. Clay we have. Andrew Wiggins is one we need to touch upon. Look, Wiggins has straight up been awful so far this season, but without Steph, he maybe gets a little extra run, gets a little extra usage. His 5K salary is like 2K less, almost 2K less than like what his average was most of the season last year, outside of being when he was hurt. So I think he's, at least in consideration. And I'm going to have a little bit of him, hoping maybe he can turn it around today. Do I expect it? No. Gary Payton. All right, Steph Curry's out. There's going to be some more minutes up for grabs. I think there is a good chance that Gary Payton gets some of those. If he is able to get, 24, 26 minutes at 3,700, he is interesting. He can really put it together on the defensive side, get some steals, blocks, add some points and rebounds, and put together a nice game in a limited amount of minutes. So I think he is of interest, but really we got to wait for news to truly know on this point as the day goes on. So just pay attention to that Golden State news and what we're hearing as far as what rotations could be. But he's a guy that will likely stay lower owned that I think is interesting. FanDuel high owns, small forward, Rocco, Jeremy Grant, and Cameron Johnson. I like Jeremy Grant a lot. I'm going to be playing him a lot. So I think on DraftKings, he's only power forward eligible. So we'll talk about him more in a little bit. Robert Covington, we got to talk about. So he's getting all the ownership. The reason he's getting all the ownership is Nick Batum is going to be out, and it's expected that Covington is going to slide into the starting spot. Now, it's not for sure, and it's not for sure how many minutes he's going to play. He is productive when he gets the minutes. However, 26 is his max all season long. Not sure they're going to put him out there for 30 plus, but he could run into 24, 26 minutes. 0.77 fantasy point per minute guy. I don't mind it. It's some value there, but with Embiid, with Maxey taking all the usage, there might not be a ton left over for him. And remember, he's also playing the role that was left by PJ Tucker, which Tucker has been able to do absolutely nothing with. Now, I think Covington is a better fantasy player than Tucker. I just don't think it's a giant upgrade where we need to be slamming in Rocco. But him being high owned is purely speculation and purely based on people expecting him to be in the starting five. All right, so now let's get to power forward. So we got the same three as the high owned here on power forward on FanDuel and on DraftKings. Rocco, Hunter, Porter, similar to the small forward spot. You will notice Jeremy Grant is a little bit lower. I do like him. I'll even go to 7,500 on him. However, at that price, I do think he's getting a little up there. But like Sharp, he's playing a ton of minutes. He can score the ball. He's taking almost 25 shots. And playing this amount of minutes, he runs into some rebounds, assists, steals, all of that stuff, which is surely needed for him to really get his fantasy game going. So I think it's a nice spot, and I'll definitely be going to some of him. Wemby versus Chet. I'm in. I think with the injuries to the Spurs, he is going to have to get some more usage, and he's up to playing 34, 35 minutes in some games. So as long as the Spurs are able to stay close, I think this is a good game for him, even though, playing Chet Holmgren is like looking in the mirror at maybe your little brother as far as body type. But I think Wemby is going to show up on this game, and I'm fine going there, especially if he stays, say, 9% owned. Lauri Markkanen, my thoughts. I'm in. Jaren Jackson is actually probably going to be one of my higher owned power forwards. Look, Lakers can't stop big men. Now, I know he's technically going to be playing power forward and not center a lot, but he has a lot of those characteristics that will allow him to succeed in this matchup, and I really do like this spot for Jaren. So I'm going to play him a lot. He has a huge ceiling, and don't mind the spot whatsoever. Into center. All right, Rocco, Nikola Jokic, and DeAndre Ayton. I've been a big fan of Ayton this season. I've played him a ton. I don't quite love this matchup for him. He could run into those big time minutes like we have seen, 41 versus Sacramento. If he's getting that type of minutes, you do have to kind of consider him. But if he's getting like 34 or 35, which I think is a little bit more likely, I just don't love it in this spot. I think his price is finally getting up to the spot where I don't have to play him. And going a little higher owned, I don't mind getting away. Jokic, I think, is in an absolutely great spot. He has just demolished the Clippers over and over and over again. Seeing him high owned is not a surprising. He is just pricey, and we might need some more true value to open up to really unlock Jokic. But I do not mind him, and we'll have a little bit of him. I just think his price is taking me out of using too much of him at this point. Embiid is in a good spot. Definitely have some of Embiid. Jaren Jackson's one of my higher owned in this spot as well. And we got to talk about Zion a little bit. We've missed him. Still no CJ. His usage goes up without CJ. He was able to play 34 minutes the other day, played 37, last week. His minutes have finally started trending upward. I think he's in an interesting spot. And 239 game total. The game total is up there. I think we want pieces from this game. And if the Pelicans are able to stay into it, it's likely because either Zion or Ingram has their game going, or one of the wings is just shooting the lights out of the ball. Which is very, very much possible. So I think it's an interesting spot, and I definitely have some consideration of Zion here. John Collins is questionable. Now, if he's out, Olynyk looks, like he's in a really good spot. But if John Collins plays, he's in consideration. My worry is that there's just a lot of these games where he's playing 27, 29 minutes. At his price, he's just probably not going to get there as being a piece you really needed for GPPs. Now, if he runs into 34, 36 minutes, it's a whole nother story. And then I'm a little more interested. I just don't expect him to get up to that many minutes. And I think that's all I got there. So, flip over to FanDuel real quick just to go over their higher owned centers. Olynyk, Collins, Wemby. I don't mind Collins. I think he's priced okay. He has some upside. I just like Wemby a lot more. I like Wemby's upside. Embiid I will be going to a little bit as well. All right. That will do it for us today. So, quick one. We got 10 games that we went over. A lot of interesting spots. I will be around trying to be in chat and whatnot, helping people throughout the day as news drops when I can. It's going to be an interesting slate. Luckily, it does look like a lot of the news is already out of the way, but there's always a chance we see some fireworks later. All right, guys. Thank you. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye.